All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour. I am your host, Daniel Marcus. My esteemed co-host, Laura Blackwell, may not make it this evening, but she is here in spirit. And I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones. You know, I started Story Hour during, lockdown last year, March, April timeframe, really at the dawn of the pandemic, with the intention of really just some friends and colleagues sharing our work with each other. And it just kind of took off. And we've really managed to, I think, build a pretty large community of readers and writers who come together every week to listen to just fabulous work. So the idea is that we invoke a time-honored form of entertainment, which is people sitting around the fire just telling each other lies. And so every week we've got two authors, about 30 minutes each, doing exactly that. Minimal self-promotion, but of course we're writers, so you can expect a little bit of that. Speaking of which, I'm very happy to announce that my short story collection, Bright Moment and Others, just dropped today from Wordfire Press. So check it out on Amazon. End of self-serving, self-promotional announcement. We also asked our guests to offer a couple of worthy causes, and we can use the bully pulpit here to make a couple of PSAs suggesting how, if you're in a position to help other people, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do that, that you can. So our readers tonight are Alex Jennings and Stephen Genise. Welcome to you both. I'm really happy to have you here. Alex is reading tonight for the NOLA Project, which is a nonprofit theater organization committed to an anti-racist theater, one that properly represents the community it serves. The URL is nolaproject.com. I will be posting that in the chat in just a few moments. Stephen is reading tonight for the National Bail Fund Network. The National Bail Fund Network is made up of over 90 community bail and bond funds across the country. They regularly update this listing of community bail funds that are freeing people by paying their bail and or bond, and are also fighting to abolish the money bail system and pre-trial detention. CommunityJusticeExchange.org. So a couple of really great causes. So let's get on with the show. We're going to start with Alex. Alex Jennings is a teacher, an author, and performer living in New Orleans. His writings appeared in Strange Horizons, Podcastle, Obsidian Lit, New Sons, and Current Affairs magazine. He was born in Wiesbaden, Germany, raised in Gaborone, in Botswana, Paramaribo in Suriname, and Tunis, Tunisia, as well as in the US. His debut novel, The Ballad of Perilous Graves, a great title, will be released by Red Hook in 2022. Before the pandemic, he served as MC for a monthly literary reading series called Dogfish, which he misses dearly. And you can find out more at alexjennings.net. So we are in your capable hands, Alex.
Thank you so much. I think tonight I'll be reading from my short story, The Leap Test, which appeared on Strange Horizons either early last year or late the year before. What is time? Who knows? So I'll just jump into it, and I might say a little bit afterwards. I might read a little poetry afterwards if there's time. But here we go. Lamont had finished setting up the testing room, but it was after 10 now, and he was still by himself. He took a seat in the uncomfortable chair, wincing as it dug its arms into his sides, and drew his phone out again. Under normal circumstances, leap testing was an exercise in boredom. The Louisiana Educational Assessment Program was a product of No Child Left Behind. The test was full of questions related to oil production, and Lamont's eyes nearly crossed just reading them to himself. The office door clattered open before Lamont could check his Twitter feed. Miss Glitz stood in the hallway, festooned with scarves. She was young and blonde, not Lamont's type, but he loved her old lady perfume. For a moment, Lamont thought Glitz was alone in the hall. Then Skander Nunez darted from behind her and into the room as if across a finish line. Small for his age, Skander had enormous brown eyes and a mass of curly hair so dark it looked wet. In his left hand, he carried an antique pencil case. Thank you, Miss Glitz, Lamont said in his too bright teacher voice. Grimacing, Glitz tossed Lamont a wave and turned abruptly away. She shut the door behind her. Good morning, Skander. Jury's still out, the third grader said. What have we got today? The boy checked the room's sight lines and repositioned his chair to make sure he had an easy view of the door, but he did so mechanically as if from habit. Lamont didn't answer Skander's question until the boy had taken a seat. Leap testing, he said. English, language arts. Oh, for fuck's sake, Skander spat. Language. Fill it out yourself. Too wrong, Skander said. You know I can't do that. Don't talk to me like I'm one of them, Skander said. Your slip is showing, Lamont said. My what? Skander said. I'm 8. You're 9, Lamont said, and you know good and well. Skander rolled his eyes. Here it comes. If you're going to live here on Earth, you're to live as a human child of your apparent age. If you can't do that, you can go to a removal community and try integration again later. You don't have to be here. Don't I? Skander said. Removal community. Listen to yourself. I tried that and so did you. At least when I'm here, I get to take nights and weekends off. It's not a never-ending fucking summer camp. That's unfair. Well then, excuse me, Skander returned. This sentence contained no profanity, but it was the first one he'd spoken with genuine venom. Things are improving. Just read a question, Skander said, dismissive. It goes with the story. Well, read the story then. A Rousing Success, Lamont read, by Abraham Schulman. One morning, Karen's mother visited Karen's room to wake her before school. Karen had a difficult time waking up because nobody let her have a decent cup of coffee, Skander finished. I drink cold brew. He curled a bicep and switched to a cartoonish Russian accent. Make me strong, like bull. That'll stunt your growth, Lamont said. You know, half the time we talk, I'm asking myself, is he fucking with me or is he really that dumb? I'm sure it's a little of both, Lamont said. Skander watched him for a long time. Lamont fidgeted a little. He liked this feeling. It was as if they were waiting to see who would laugh first. When Skander's expression broke, no mirth appeared. Instead, his face seemed to crumble, and for the first time, his age showed. Tell me, honestly, how did you do it? He said. You were how old before you came back? Lamont didn't usually talk about his sojourn, but there was no denying the desperation in the boy's voice. In Fornis, I served the royal court for 115 years, he said. It's hard to say how long I was there before I took the position, but we had to organize a resistance and overthrow Fel Malak. I was a grown man by the time we rooted out the last of his altar stones. By his reckoning, he'd been at least 32 when he joined the court. That's a long life, Skander said. Wife? Kids? 2 wives, Lamont said. 6 children. And once you came back, you were 11, Lamont said. It was 1994. I had to finish middle and high school, go to college. He didn't have to explain. He'd been a fat kid in South Baltimore, and his adventures had rendered him terminally strange. The other kids despised him. Even the despised kids despised him. After more than a century as a hero of a hidden realm, Skander said. Lamont swallowed. A knock at the door. Go away, Skander called. We're playing spades. Lamont glared at him. What is it? Miss Glitz opened the door part way and craned her neck to face him. Did Shauna leave some folders in here? Lamont glanced around the little room. It depressed him a little that on normal days this was someone's office. Not that I see. Was it put away or on the desk? She paused before answering, questioning Lamont with a look. Lamont's shrug was barely a movement. Glitz drew in a breath. Lamont hardened his gaze. Couldn't tell you, Glitz said. You know Shauna. Sorry to interrupt. She withdrew again, shut the door. Isn't that illegal? Isn't what? Interrupting testing, Skander said. She could have given me an answer sheet or threatened me in code or something. You should be nicer to her, Lamont said. She's one of the good ones. She's not even trying to get you to be normal. She just wants you to pass so that average people will think you're one of their own and treat you accordingly. That makes her worse than the others, Skander said tightly. If we were as similar as you think, you'd get that. You shouldn't speak that way to me, to anyone. Report me. Not unless you force me. My father's terrified of me, Skander said. He thinks I'm an imposter. He knows I'm not, but he can't help himself. My mother died believing I'd murdered her son and replaced him, Lamont said. We only spoke of it once. You were close? Before I crossed. My father used to beat me, Skander said. He tried once after I got back. I didn't stop him. I just kept eye contact. After a while, the fear froze his hands and he had to give up. Genuine pity is the direst and most powerful magic at our disposal. They paused just long enough for Lamont to take in what they'd just said. They both laughed. Okay, maybe you should talk to me like you talk to them, Skander said with real affection. He leaned forward, pushed his fingers into his hair. I'm not married. Wasn't married. Uh, Now it was his turn to swallow. The worst thing is I'd forgotten, you know? Belm changed my memories when I arrived, gave me a backstory, a family history, everything. I had to alter time itself to bring Prime Minister Skarn back from the underworld. I was in the naming world trying to fuse the right colors together when I saw a color I'd never seen before, one that didn't belong. I tried not to touch it because I knew it was. I suspected from the start that there was more to the amnesia than a head injury. I fixed the streams, restored Minister Skarn to life, and made it so the invasion never happened. That night, I went back to Belm a hero. I didn't think anyone would know what I'd done, but he trailed off. How did they find out? Lamont asked. Raminda, the Birch Queen, had been killed just before I traversed the world. She was dead the entire time I was in there, and she saw it all from beyond. Well, except for the part where I realized I wasn't me. So once she was alive again, we sued for marriage. I was 36. Tell me about her. No, Skander said. No. The word is the same, but birches are different there. They're made of stone glass, and they smell like a cross between vanilla and lavender. She was the color of cola when the sun shines through it. I won't tell you about her. He slapped his pencil case down on the desk. Goddamn leap tests, he said. Minda and I didn't have kids. Listen, Lamont said. I know it's hard. I know. But there's more at stake here than you realize. You've got to work with me. I know you mean well, Skander said. I get why Delgado wants us to live this way. You can't have people crossing the water to and fro all the time. It would disrupt the fabric of reality. Hell, did you read Shriver's new paper? He thinks the hidden realms are created when we cross and destroyed when we cross back. He says that's why nobody's ever returned to one. I don't believe that, Lamont said. Your wives, your kids. Lamont didn't answer. I don't believe it either, Skander said. In fact, I know it's not true. Don't say what you're going to say, Lamont warned. Write your test, do well enough, and live your life. Or what? Skander said. You'll take that wand you have taped to the bottom of the desk drawer and cut me down in the middle of my elementary school day? How is it that a guy like you has to resort to that kind of violence to keep me in line? A wand. Pathetic. I'm going to tell you something real, Lamont said. It's not the Delgado party line, and it's not coming from your integration officer. I say this man to man. The life you led is so crazy that it's thrown off your understanding of this world and how it works. You can't conceive that there's anyone tougher, quicker, or luckier than you. You can't imagine that anyone has been through what you've been through and done things any differently. You may have lived into your 30s before you left that other world behind, but you've got a lot of growing up to do. I can get you back to Fornis, Skander said flatly. Silence filled the air of the small office. It settled heavily over them like a blanket of years and pain. God damn it, Lamont said. As soon as he made to reach under the desk, he became aware that he and Skander were not alone in the room. Another version of Skander leaned against the wall by the window, his arms crossed as he waited. Another sat on the floor to the right of the desk, his back against the wall. A third stood beside the door, his eyes boring into Lamont. Wansdorfer, Skander said. Now a hum had entered the air of the room. Something electric seemed to disturb it, electric and ancient. I'm sorry, Lamont, Skander said. We'll both. He pitched forward, went to his knees. With his left hand, he reached for his throat. Panic filled his eyes as he realized he was sinking into the floor. He locked eyes with Lamont. Lamont showed the boy his palms. There was nothing he could do. In another moment, he was gone, and so were his projections. Lamont sighed. You're right, he said. Wands are for kids. This was the part of the job he hated. He loved these kids, understood their pain, but more often than not, they understood nothing beyond it. Most of them grew up again just fine, but others, the loss of everything they knew or cared for embittered them, twisted their minds, led them to lash out against innocent people or even entire worlds. I can get you back to Fornus. Another knock at the door. Lamont waited a moment, then stood and crossed the room to let Glitz and her pressed flower scent inside. This time she closed the door behind her. It's done, she said. It wasn't a question. Honestly, I don't want to talk about it. You're going to have to file a report anyway. Lamont sighed. You were right. It was Shriver's paper, pushed him over the edge. Lamont shook his head. He hated lying to these kids, but he understood the necessity. If a crosser learned that it was possible to return before he or she had finished working through the trauma of being bounced back to baseline reality, they could seriously endanger themselves, this plane, and their adopted realms. Listen, I know he was your favorite. Just talk to Cherish. Take some time off. Sooner or later, one of these Dark Lords is going to follow a kid back here. Who's going to stop them if that happens? Crazy, fucked up kids like Skander used to be? Or those basket case camp kids? Lamont. Lamont shook his head. Lamont, Glitz repeated. She waited until he looked her in the eye. They're not camps. Don't call them that. Definitely not to anyone besides me. Understand? Lamont couldn't speak. All he could offer her was half a nod. Nobody's coming, Glitz said. And even if they were, it wouldn't be our job to deal with that. We're integrators. Right, right. Go home, have a good cry, she said. Then in 2 weeks, get your ass back here for another test. If this is so easy for you, why did you interrupt us? Glitz took a breath and seemed to weigh her response. Finally, she said, because I knew if you stayed in here with them too long, you'd lose your nerve. Now go. Tell Rana and Chalia hi for me. Kiss the kids. Lamont tried to resist, but he cracked a genuine smile. I will, he said. I always do. All right, how are we on time? Let's see. Okay, I still have a few minutes left.
Oh, definitely.
I guess I'm going to bust out a little bit of poetry.
Outstanding.
Um, so about that last story, I wrote that while I was working as a substitute teacher in the New Orleans public schools. Our school system down here is very dysfunctional, and there are a lot of children in it who definitely understand the world enough to know that they've been getting a raw deal and are very angry about it. And I considered it my job to help them process that anger without letting it destroy them. So,
Thank you. That was a terrific story. I really enjoyed it.
thank you very much. This first poem is called A Late Riser. Eyes burn at night and swollen tongue for fitful sleep, excited as small boys are excited for the new day and the scenery change and the thrill of warm chlorinated water. And when rain blankets like snow drops rushing headlong like schools of fish, education or no education, and whip stripes in the reddened earth, I read now because my brain has healed, I think, back strong, muscles primed, kneeling to anticipate the starting shot, but running all the while. The valley of dry bones, Ezekiel addresses the army, the horror of my boyhood and the only bathroom self staring slack jawed back at me. All right.
Mm.
Let me try another. This one is called The Ivory Coast. You might say it's a bit political. A bit. What bothers me when folks say we are a race of kings and queens is not the question of whom such royalty would rule. If black crowns ascended, you'd rule no less harshly. Crack of whip, quartered bodies, stark and blackened limbs hanging among the trees, black lining instead of red. Marble step and perfumed water, mute pharaonic screams in a rich little city, and shining tabernacle kneeling amid the mid-Atlantic green and robot lions, called to prayer and curse of Ham, for lust, for mocking weakness, Which brothers walking backwards bore the furred blanket? Who deserted the celestial army or refused the war entire? Objectors in glory, Ali of the angelic host, cast down the ladder, cast beyond jasper walls to serve in ageless penance, limb lost and flesh split of whips for the book, explain the scripture drawn about you like a blanket, warming ermine stole, convenient. It's not that we suffer most, that our labor is dearest. No one should be chained to plows by liars, cowards. No tears or unwilling blood should water American crops, the fields of any dreaming land. Profane worship, place the infant in the idol's arms, strangled cries and blasphemous prayer, choking blood, alternate rites. Yes, yes, brotherhood of man, but this is my skin. These my heavy feet bear me across reddened soil. My body is expensive, my skull a golden bowl, my heart of platinum, and feathered questions hived like stirred up wasp wings brushed the curved and golden walls. A steel driving man, a steel driving man, a steel driving man. Impenetrable skin, a cunning for crime and insensitive to pain. He scared me. He scared me, and his iced tea was a gun. His phone was a gun. His pink and empty palm was, or merely human. Why should I bear power beyond mortal men? Why should godly ichor issue from my stripes, or blood of kings swim in my veins? A human man, not male, man, wakes from dreaming drowned in secret crypts, pastel empires among a forest of stars, bone crowns, glassy armor, climbs from bed, rheumatic hip and groaning fingers. What noise? What noise? Punch through rock, lift the mountain, turn galactic arm, power cosmic, rings aglow, and only the unsmiling photographs of my forebears survive. All right, looks like we're in good time for me to leave it there.
Yeah. Outstanding work. Thank you so much for sharing it. Really appreciate it. As is our custom, we just pause for a moment between authors just to sort of let the work sink in. All right, on with the show. Our next author, Stephen Genise. Stephen's work has appeared in Gone Lawn, Menacing Hedge, 5 on the Fifth, Flash Flood, and others. And he is a columnist for JMWW. He lives in Seattle with his wife and his dog, a pug named Danny DeVito. Take it away, Stephen.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Alex, that was wonderful. That was beautiful. Today I will be reading a short story called Gravel, which appeared, I guess, in May, in the May issue of Fusion Fragment. And then if we have time, it's a little on the short side, maybe some flash fiction. Okay, Gravel. My daughter does have a name, but I can't quite articulate what it is, having never had cause to say it out loud. In my mind, when I speak to her, I say name, but I'm not cognizant of what I'm saying. And when I try to think about the specifics, the qualia of the name vanish one by one. The closest thing I can get to is that her name is the concept of beautiful in the way that only your own child can be beautiful. Beautiful like she's a marvel to behold, that you should be so lucky to bear witness, but to attach pride to it would be self-interested. There's a swell of heart in the way the heart swells with pride, but you don't want to call it pride, and so you call it beautiful. She always wears the same thing, and has for the last 20 years I've been imagining her. White tennis shoes, even though there's no more rubber. Blue jeans, even though there's no more cotton. A little down puffy jacket, even though there's no more nylon. She appears to me when I'm doing a task that requires explanation. I tell her, this is how you track a goat. This is how you build a campfire. And she nods as I teach her how to live and educate her again and again and again on the new modes. And when I'm done educating, she smiles, and we smile together. She appears to me as a relic of the cities, but unlike every other relic, she doesn't disappear with time. I stepped on my sunglasses one night getting up to piss. My baseball cap blew away on a ridge because I didn't tie it under my chin with strips of twine like Min told me to. Over the years, my boots wore away, leather replaced by rubber bit by bit, until now the only remaining vestige of the original boot is a small patch on the instep of my left foot. But unlike those other slices of anachronism which beg reckoning and explanation, my daughter doesn't disappear, only appears. She appears when I'm hiking alone, to walk beside me, stepping nimbly from stone to stone while I tell her the story of my life, what things were like before the cities disappeared, what it was like to wear tennis shoes and jeans and to work in an office. I've been caught talking out loud to her before, by Eduardo, by Min, by everyone else in the camp. But if anything else disappeared with the cities, it was judgment. We all do what we need to. I joined Min's band a decade ago now. A few frozen shelters rising up from the mossy plains along Straight Creek that drains Lake Twizel. Back then, the band could fish along the lake and hunt the goats that come down to the plain for the winter to escape the snow. In the summer, when the ground gets too hot to grow anything, we chase the goats north beyond the lake, through the long last water meadow as they graze on the snowmelt grasses. Min was generous to me and showed me a degree of love and familiarity I hadn't felt since the cities. Now the camp was small. As the fish population dropped and the ground got hot and the goats ran further and further up the valley to the foot of Mount Muller. Now the hunting party sets its last camp right at the base of the mountain, where last water forks to the east and west up two long, narrow gravel canyons. Gravel, I explained to my daughter, sitting on the bank beside me, soaking her feet in the stream, is nature's way of calling our attention to absence. Back in the cities, gravel roads were notable for their lack of pavement, and when the buildings fell into their foundation, gravel lots were left. The world is a great big ball of gravel, painted with a trompe-l'oeil of landscape, and when you scrape off the top layer, it's always just gravel underneath. I gestured to the edge of the valley, to the ruins of the building where the hunting parties used to stay, large enough to make a fire safely inside without asphyxiating, but small enough to offer some warmth and protection from storms, until it, too, fell into its foundations and became gravel. Min and I would push our bedrolls together long after everyone else fell asleep, and afterwards we would whisper quietly about the past. What? Asks Min, seeing me gesture. I shake my head, just pointing. On one of those nights, I learned how Min lost their child, and after that, I didn't let them hear me talking to my daughter anymore. We depart from last water at sunrise, our belly and our water bags full, and we head west up the canyon. This gravel's absence is that of glacier, I whisper to my daughter, and so it's a deep U of fine ground granite and sharp. There's a hair of a creek that trickles down the middle, but it's cloudy with glacial flour, and to drink from it's to sand yourself down from the inside. Back in the early days, the goats didn't go up into the canyon, and so we would stay in the old building in the meadow and spend weeks hunting and fishing, and Min and I would sneak off when we could, until that too fell into its foundations. But the goats became wise to our presence eventually, and moved further up the valley to its northern end, where it splits to either side of Mount Muller. On the east fork is a lake 10 miles long and thin, the source of last water, and the goats migrated there for a time until we hunted them out of it. Now they moved to the western fork up the gravel canyon, where the only water is the non-potable trickle that moves up and up the canyon for miles. The last several seasons, we've tried to follow the goats up, but without water, the furthest we can go is the medial moraine that braids the creek about 5 miles in, on which over the years we've stacked a small pad of dried moss and duff to sleep on. If we don't catch the goats before that camp, then we don't get them until the fall when they move back down the mountain to escape the snow. And then every spring, as soon as the meadow thaws, the goats move again and we chase them up and up and up until they climb beyond our reach. We don't know where they go when they go up the canyon. They don't drink the glacial milk either, and so there must be a source of water somewhere up there where they go and spend their days. But they can go much longer without water than us, and so we can't get to them. This isn't the first time this has happened to them, Min told me. They used to live in the valley just to the south, and like here, they chased the goats further and further up until they disappeared into a gravel canyon and the group had to move. They told me this 2 years ago, the last time we pushed our bedrolls together, which was a one-off. They were clear about that. It'll happen in this valley too, they said. There aren't many years left here. But I like it here. They shook their head. You can't be protective of things you can't protect. When we reach our campsite, the hunting party beds down. I teach my daughter how to sweep away an area free of larger rocks, how to make it flat, how to gather some dust from around to soften it. The sun dips below the ridge of the canyon and illuminates the peaks in amber. I curl against the edge of my little flat, leaving room for my daughter, even though I know she isn't there. And I climb inside my blankets and go to sleep. Genise had come to Min in a dream. She sat on the rock just outside the hunting party's campsite, and Min sat before her, legs crossed. The moon in the dream was full, even though that night it was a sliver, and the full moon reflected off Jenise's eyes, which glowed. She had told Min, I was the first to chase the goats up the canyon. I know. She had told Min, the goats must go somewhere. I know. She had told Min, I am going there tonight. I know. But now Min was awake and said those words out loud underneath their blankets, and Jingi's bedroll was empty. In the cities, we grew up believing that dreams have no meaning. But as with everything, gradually we relearned the old ways. I wake up to relieve myself, and the Milky Way is out, the moon not yet. But if anything died with the cities, it was artificial light, and the Milky Way by itself is plenty to navigate by to the canyon wall. I see movement on the ridge above, and a pair of tall, rectangular eyes illuminate, a small goat just blending in with the rocks behind it. It scampers away up the canyon, and I grab my bow and take off after it up the moraine. With the light of the galaxy, I can make out its shape as I move, and on the scree of the moraine, I'm faster. I can catch it in no time, and I'll teach my daughter how to skin and butcher it, and how to use each of the parts, and how to pack the rest and carry it back to Last Water for tomorrow's camp. But my goat keeps just ahead of me, bounding in quick bursts before looking back, making eye contact, and then springing away. The slope of the moraine steepens, turns to scree, and both of our paces slow. Beside me, my daughter glides above the scree, though she mimes running. And I explain to her why we can be faster over the scree than the goats, and that even if our feet sink into it and slide, and even if we stumble trying to get out and to make vertical progress against miniature landslides, the goat's hooves sink in more. But my goat doesn't slow down. My goat appears a practice expert, finding more solid ground amongst the scree that I can't make out in the darkness, and leaping to it. When he does hit the soft scree, his feet work like tiny pistons, keeping him aloft and not allowing enough time to sink in. I slow, I slide, I stumble. The Milky Way moves across the sky with us. In the night, Min had taken off after Jingyi, not bothering to grab their water skin or their bow. This was the old canyon, from before Min moved the camp north to the base of Lake Twizel. But all canyons are the same. The same milky creek, the same gravel moraine, leading to the same scree, to the same talus. Min didn't have time to sit around and wait for the moon to rise, or maybe it was a new moon, I don't know. The story has drifted with each retelling. They ran up the gravel, slogged through the moraine, and stumbled up and up, slipping and staggering and looking in the dark, up and up. They got to the talus, hopping from stone to stone recklessly. Min didn't know where they were headed specifically, but the dream pulled them. The dream pulled them. After an hour, the scree turns to talus, rising steeply, and it's dangerous for me to place my feet. I explained this to my daughter, who, like the goat, can bound from boulder to boulder with infinite lightness. I say, you're probably too small to shift a boulder into falling onto you, but you're much more likely to step into a hole and go down. And if you do go down, your leg will lever against the rock that you missed, a cold and indifferent fulcrum. Break your leg up here, miles up the canyon, a full day's hike from Last Water with nobody in the hunting party knowing you're out here. Well, she's too young for me to tell her what happened to Jingyi, at least not the specifics. I tell her that back when that happened, antibiotics could still be found if you were lucky, but it was rare. And Min knew that even if they brought Jingyi back, the rest of the camp would vote no. We're no better at treating breaks and infections now, I told her, looking over to see her face, but we're better at not getting into that situation. And as I said this, I felt it, or the lack of it. The lack of stone beneath my foot, my heart plummeting, my hands flying out ahead of me, foot sliding down, down, and under. My hands hit first, blunted the blow to my face, and I felt my ankle come to rest on cold granite. They almost stepped right on top of Jingyi in the darkness, but Min looked down, again called by the dream, compelled to look at their feet, and saw her lying there. Leg caught in the small triangle of space between three rocks, broken and stuck deep within the bowels of the moraine. She was lying on her back, lips chapped and bleeding, and she was looking upwards. From the way she was positioned, it was clear that she had been headed back down towards camp, having found something or not. Their eyes met, and Jingyi let out the slightest creak of breath, but they both knew there wasn't any point in trying. I remember when the lights first went out in the cities when I was a child. There was a collective pause as we looked around the room, not sure what would happen now. We opened doors, we looked out our windows, confirmed that it wasn't just us, it was everyone. Then we shouted, we cried, we pounded our neighbors' doors, we crashed our cars, we wrote our signs, we prayed to our gods, we marched on our streets, we breathed in the gas, we broke open stores, we shot our guns, we burned our money, we baked our bread, we canned our peaches, we demanded our answers, we sought our justice, we fought and we fought until we were bleeding and tired. There was a silence then, with the gravity setting in, how much space things can occupy in our world, our mode of life, without us ever realizing them. I breathe, and I can't feel anything broken. My foot is resting just in the space between two boulders, wedged but okay. I rotate it, carefully tug it, and see the last little bit of rubber on the instep of my left boot rip free and tumble deep into the rocks. I look around for my daughter, but she's nowhere to be seen. The last anachronism disappears into the gravel, and like the moment when the lights went out, I'm floating free in an empty world. I'm wearing fur skins on my shoulders and on my hips, a carved bow by my side, handmade leather boots. I'm sitting in an empty glacial valley at the end of the world, and I am alone, waiting for the moon to rise. Min had spent the rest of that night finding small rocks to cover Jingi's body, and in the morning they were tired, thirsty, bleeding, and free. When the moon is up, I finally stand and shake the soreness out of my limbs. There's enough light to see by, and I can tell that I'm near the crest of a large bluff in the center of the canyon. Just above me, the ground turns back to scree and then further up into a soft sand. Walking across it chills me from my feet upwards, even if the rest of the night is warm, and as I emerge at the top of the bluff, I'm shivering. I see my goat silhouetted against the silver glowing sky. His head is down, and he's drinking at the edge of an electric blue watering hole, bluer and brighter in the night than anything I'd ever seen. It glows in the moonlight, bright white blue like lightning. And then I see more, 5 pools, 10 pools, and around them dozens and dozens of goats. I reach for my daughter in my mind. I want to shout excitedly to her, to jump up and down on my sore knees, to point and gesture. I want to kick aside the gravel and show her the snow underneath, explain to her how insulation works and how it's a miracle that this glacier could survive for so long underneath the dust when all the other glaciers have long since died away, and tell her about how Mars has had a polar ice cap underneath the dust for millions of years, and tell her what a polar ice cap was and what Mars is. But I don't have a daughter, and I've never had one. So I stop beside my goat, I dip my head into the water, and I drink with him. It's cold, it's clean, and it's beautiful. The last night we slept together, after Min told me that this canyon was done, I asked if they moved out of their old canyon because of Jingi. Min said no. To think that they had changed radically after her death would be too reductive. The truth is, they'd been changing since the lights went out, always at the same rate. But finding Jingi amongst the rocks gave form to that change, helped them understand it. Min told me a different story of the night that the lights went out. They told me they had been on the balcony of their apartment, which they just moved into after a failed marriage. There was panic, sure, and people flooding the streets, but Min was apart from all that. Looking up, they saw a star for the first time, and then as their eyes adjusted, 2. 2 became 10, and the major constellations formed in skeleton and then were filled in, shaded and colored. They saw the Milky Way, they saw Andromeda, they saw a nebula blossoming from Orion's heart like an antelope struck with an arrow. Lights and lights and lights and lights. It was another city forming above them, but this one had no straight lines, no design, no reason. The city below them was in panic and desperation, but they didn't live there anymore. When I'm done drinking my fill, I lay down beside the pool. The goats don't notice me. They just go on being goats. The last night we slept together as we lay in the cool air outside the crumbled foundations of that old shelter in Lastwater Meadow, sweaty, with our arms behind each other's necks. They told me that it's an instinct to protect what's ours, to impose order onto it, but that nothing is ours, and that when we realize nothing is ours, and that there's nothing we must impose order on, then we can finally live free in the space that remains. I stretch out and I close my eyes, and I'll hike back tomorrow. How are we on time? All right. About 10 minutes left, is that right?
Yeah, well, we have about 20 minutes left. So you, by all means, read a flash story.
I'm not going to take up 20 minutes. That was a little bit shorter than I thought then. All right, let me pull up a flash fiction piece.
Oh, it was lovely, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. This is a flash fiction piece called Tips for Coming of Age in the Apocalypse, which appeared in Milk Candy Review sometime last year, I think fall of last year. Tips for Coming of Age in the Apocalypse. Number 1, it may be a long time before you accept the reality, but when you do, it'll feel like old news. Number 2, The limitations of the public imagination will be distressing. Number 3, you'll second guess yourself, and why shouldn't you? There's never been an apocalypse in your lifetime. 4, your children won't grow up getting little scars on their elbows from running in the backyard, and that will ache. You'll understand that your early life was wasteful and hierarchical, but it was also comfortable. You don't need to have consistent feelings about this. It's okay to miss it. Number 5, you'll become more grateful that you didn't have children at all, and you'll grow closer to your partner. Number 6, some of you already have children, and you'll be grateful for them too, but in a different way. Number 7, you'll want to plan for the future, but it's not possible right now. It's okay. Learn to be flexible instead. Number 8, the apocalypse will take longer than you expect. Number 9, the house you bought will lose its color and go gray. Number 10, you'll remember these early years as being the color of sand and gravel with a dusty texture. You'll call these years by their common names, but you'll remember them as the gravel years. Oh my God, I have a lot of gravel. Number 11, gardening is harder than it looks. So is hunting, but you'll meet people who know how to do both already. 12, there's a vast depth of knowledge to even the most basic handiwork that you'll probably lack. Read books about it and learn from others. Don't try to figure it out yourself. 13, when power structures collapse, so do hierarchies. 14, you'll lose friends and family. Cherish their memory, but try to distinguish the pains of the apocalypse from the general pains of life marching onward. 15, don't build for permanence, rebuild when necessary. 16, your body will break down before it becomes stronger. That's okay, keep going. One day you'll assume you've always been this strong, but you haven't. 17, art is a human behavior, and without letting it into your life, you won't feel fully human. 18, remember words like PTO and deductible. It'll feel like remembering high school exams. 19, you'll be surprised to realize it, but you don't miss grocery stores. 20, the first decade is the worst, except that you're not adapting, you're rediscovering. 21, the rediscovery will be worth it. 22, trust the people around you. There have been apocalypses before yours, and none of them have been the end of the world. All right, let's see. Okay. This next one, which I think will be my last one, is called When Do You Prepare for a Civil War, which appeared in 5 on the 5th, I believe October of last year, possibly September of last year. When do you prepare for a civil war? You prepare for it alongside doing the dishes and folding the laundry. You prepare for it when you get into your car and drive to work and listen to talk radio. You prepare for it when you open the news and text your friends and family, when all conversations buzz with the unspeakable subtext that nobody feels confident enough to voice. And because of that, you're never really sure the subtext is there to begin with, or whether you're just projecting. You prepare for it in your excitement when someone mentions the possibility, because it validates your fears, and again in your guilt when you realize the implications of that. You prepare for it when you're walking down the sidewalk, trying to imagine what it will look like when it's shattered and pitted. Will the collapsed buildings look like pictures you've seen from other countries, or will it look more like the aftermath of a hurricane, tumbled spars of broken studs and joists? Probably a lot of it will burn, and you left the wildfire state before the wildfires happened, so you don't know what that looks like either, really, except for what you've seen on the news. You prepare for it when you look at your spouse standing in the corner grinding coffee, imagining them with dirt on their face and scars and thin. You prepare for it when you run through your options about where you'll go and what you'll do, how you'll react, and with each iteration feeling more and more fantastical than the one before it, each iteration crackling with the possibility that you're just finding excuses to believe that your neighborhood will be fine, your house will be safe, you won't be a nameless body dug out of the rubble 5 years after the world settles down. Each iteration bringing the job of the prepper closer to the job of the author. You prepare for it when your childhood friend goes AWOL from his post in the state forces and shows up at your door, bag in hand, even though you live on the other side of the country. You prepare for it when you show him to your couch, lay some blankets out, and make everyone a fresh cup of coffee. You go through all of your memories together, like when he dragged you over to the chain link fence in 9th grade to introduce you to his girlfriend, pointed out onto the field where a row of cheerleaders were tumbling under the floodlights, and you said, which one? Or 12 years later, when that cheerleader was now a sculptor and you were marrying her, and you told the revolutionary to fuck off in the ballroom of the hotel because you had too much to deal with and to help him figure out how to mingle with your extended family. Or in between, when the three of you shared a moment that you vowed never to speak of outside of your triangle, which you recount only with an awkward sigh. You prepare for it when the sculptor gets back from the doctor and confirms the happiest fear any of you ever had. These kinds of things evolve. They don't spontaneously erupt fully formed. They grow into babies from conception like everyone else, and then into adulthood. Their gestational period is not all that much longer than ours, though. And unless you're paying attention, most people don't see that gestation, especially from the state media. And so the effect is that they sprang from the head of the people like Athena from Zeus. It's frustrating if you're the one going to the doctor every day to look at new sonograms, if you're following its steady growth, the extension of its fingernails, the pitting of its nostrils, the increasing force of its beating heart. But 9 months is not as long as it sounds. It's actually quite brief, and so you can understand how most people miss it, especially if its birth is not something you ever expected, ever wanted. And every day, you find reasons to categorize its new features as something that will lead to its miscarriage rather than its delivery. But 9 months is not a long time. It takes only one trimester for people to stop saying protest and start saying block, for the state to slowly, day by day, dial up the muzzle velocity on their less lethal rounds until they go from bruising legs to shattering helmets. It takes another trimester for emblems and badges to disappear, for name tags to be taped over, for faces to be covered. But it stays stable that second trimester. It's not a shooting war. And so when people throw around that term, it feels willfully naive to the horrors that term engenders. And you think, okay, this is where it will stay. But the third trimester sees bullets, body armor, trucks, and then delivery. You prepare for it when you zip your bag shut for the last time and hold the sculptor in your arms and kiss her forehead. When you hug the revolutionary and the three of you cry before you go. I'm not a materialist, but I think I'll miss my desk the most.
Oh man, nice work. Nice work. Well, we've been doing this since around March of 2020. So that's something like 17 months. And we only just once 1 week. So it's close to 65 sessions, 2 writers apiece, 130. We've had a few repeat offenders. So we've had a little over 100 authors come through and read for us, which is remarkable. And they've been very different, and they've all been fabulous. So I'm so really privileged to get to have this kind of stewardship role to bring writers in and share it with all of you who are out there listening. So I want to thank our authors tonight: Stephen Genise, Alex Jennings. Really great work. Thank you for joining us, Story Hour. Next week, we have Gemma Files and Susan Palumbo. So come on back. And between then and now, please take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And we'll see you soon. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alex. Oh, sorry. And Daniel, too. Yeah.